Dear participants, just wait for 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes, we will start our session properly. Dear participants, firstly, I apologize for the late and Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to all participants in today's webinar on the topic Development of Islamic Banking and Finance in African Countries. So I am Raisa Bibi, representative of AlHuda side. As you all know that AlHuda side is a pioneer organization started its efforts to promote Islamic banking and finance since 2005. And the AlHuda side is acknowledged all around due to its excellent services. It has been committed to provide quality services regarding advisory and consultancy, publications, international conferences, Sharia advisory, research for the awareness of people. We also conduct webinars for the awareness of people. So in this regard, today we have a very special speaker, Sheikh Muhammad Easa. Now let me introduce our respected speaker, Sheikh Muhammad Easa. He is a prominent Muslim scholar based in Tanzania. He served in a number of Muslim organizations as first Deputy Secretary General for Muslim Scholars Organizations. He was also Secretary General for the Islamic Foundation and Sharia Board member for Stanbic Bank Islamic Window. He is currently serving as chairman of Muslim Development Board, director, Mambu Islamic Schools, deputy secretary general for Answer Sunnah organization in Tanzania, Sharia advisor to Al Huda Site, based in Qatar, a founder and executive member of CAF Tanzania, and a founder and executive committee member for Center of Islamic Finance, Compliance and Advisory. Sheikh Mohammed Isa is a prolific columnist in a number of newspapers in Tanzania, radio and TV commentator on Islamic banking and finance, BBC World Swahili analyst, Sharia advisor, trainer, and consultant, and has been written a number of books on Islamic banking and finance in Kiswahili language. So we warmly welcome to you, sir. Thank you so much for giving your time and this opportunity to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you to have me this afternoon, this wonderful afternoon, with all these wonderful people in this very important forum. Hello?
Yes, sir. You can share your screen with us so that we can see your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, is it okay?
Yes, sir.
I hope it's clear now.
It is clear to us.
Should we begin, or we're still waiting for some arrangement from your side?
Sorry, sir. I didn't hear your voice clearly.
I was saying, should we begin right away, or we are waiting for some arrangement from your
Yes,
side?
sir. You can start your presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear participants in this very important forum with the theme, the development of Islamic banking and finance in Africa. As the table of contents appears on your screen, we will have a short look on African demographical state as per year 2020 and then we will move on to Africa and Islamic banking and finance history. Thereafter, the existing religio-political landscape, because it's very important to know the religio-political landscape of African countries, which has an impact in Islamic banking and finance. And then we will look on Islamic banking and finance growth trends in Africa, then opportunities for Islamic banking and finance in Africa, and the challenges thereof facing Islamic banking and finance in Africa. Then we will look on what to be done, and lastly, but not leastly, we will have a number of conclusions on my topic. So right away, the demographic state, the Muslims in Africa, the continent of Africa was the first place whereby the message of Islam got through from Mecca through the migration of the companions of the Prophet to Abyssinia, or the present day Ethiopia. So African continent can be taken as being a Muslim continent, and actually it has got a great number of Muslims in sub-Saharan Africa. The majority of the Muslims in Africa, as you can see on your screen, are the Sunni Muslims, comprising of Hanafi, the four prominent madhabs, the Hanafi, the Hanbali, and the Malik and Shafi. And there are also Shia in Africa, although in small number, of Ismaili and Jafari and Zaidis and others. We have also the Ibadis Muslims in Africa, especially in East Africa and Northern Africa. So as far as the demographic state of Muslims Africa is concerned, you can see mainly the northern part of African continent is where the big number of Muslims appear, from the West Africa and the Northern Africa, and also the eastern shore of the Indian Ocean, in Tanzania and Mozambique and Kenya, Somalia, is also whereby the Muslims resides in majority. Demographic of African countries, when viewed from financial inclusion perspective, there is a low financial inclusion. And when we talk about financial inclusion, we mean the number of people who are accessed by the financial institutions, such as the banks and other financial institutions. Generally, it is low financial inclusion in sub-Saharan Africa, which in other way, it's an opportunity for Islamic banking and finance, because where people are underserved or under connected to financial services, it is an opportunity. It only remains to unlock the challenges which are existing in such areas. Therefore, if you look on the numbers, they are the largest country in Africa with the largest financial inclusion is South Africa with the 68.8%. Then it is followed by Namibia. Surprisingly, Namibia has got 58.1% of financial inclusions. And then what follows, it's in the eastern shore, eastern side of the continent, Kenya with 55.2%. My only country, Tanzania, the financial inclusion as per percentage of population is very low. It's 19%. But there are countries like Niger, which has got only 3.5% financial inclusions, in Somalia with 7.9%. So generally, you see that a number of people in Africa which are connected with the banking and the other financial institutions is very low as compared to Asia, compared to, say, Europe and America. This is one of the very important points to note for Islamic banking and finance, especially when people want to come and start banking and financing activities in Africa. They should note that there is a low financial inclusions. Moving to Africa and Islamic banking and finance history, you know, Africa is the inventor of modern Islamic finance, Islamic banking, although currently Africa lags behind as far as the growth and development of Islamic finance industry is concerned. When we say Africa is a cradle of Islamic finance and banking, it is really referred to the first Islamic bank or the first Islamic financial institution in Africa, which was formed in Egypt at Montgomery Saving Bank. It was in 1963. Although there were earlier examples of mentioned by scholars, for example, in rural Pakistan in 1950s during the activities of the late Allama Abu Ala al-Maududi. Pakistan was a pioneer of Islamic finance, Islamic economy. So in 1950s, there was also a mention of early examples of Islamic financial activities. But yet the Montgomery Saving or Social Bank, which was established in 1963 in Egypt, is generally mentioned as the first Islamic banking prototype in the world. It follows, therefore, that we can give credit to Africa to be the pioneer of Islamic banking and finance, although today we cannot give credit to Africa as being more developed in Islamic finance and banking. Despite that, this Montgomery Saving and Social Bank had no any suffix of Islam in it, like saying Montgomery Islamic Finance or Islamic Bank or Islamic Microfinance, but yet it was formed according and functioned according to Islamic rules and regulations. Therefore, this history of Islamic finance in Africa make us in Africa to be proud, although we cannot proud ourselves today looking on the development of Islamic banking and finance in other parts of the world. Now let's move to the existing religio-political landscape. Now, as we have said that Africa, the northern part of Africa is largely Muslim, but the political landscape in Africa is important to know because it affects the establishment and growth of Islamic banking and finance. We cannot avoid looking into the effect of religion in the growth of Islamic banking and finance in Africa, because according to the religious setup of a country, which affects the political landscape of a country, we can follow up to see how Islamic banking and finance can grow, or what challenges they face, if at all there is. We can see that there are three setups, three state religions in Africa, or three political systems in Africa. One is Islamic political system, which can be found largely in the northern part of the continent. And there is Christianity as a state religion, and this is found in Central Africa, moving down to the Southern Africa. The area of Central Africa is largely Christian majority, and there is also a mixed political religious setup, whereby secularism is a major force which moves political activities in a country. But largely it is Islam and Christianity which compete for the supremacy in African country. So you can see, looking on this map there, Christians form 50.9% of the African population, and Muslims 43.3%, and others, which means the natural religion, is 5.8%. So this is also important as far as Islamic banking and finance growth and development in Africa is concerned. Now, moving into Islamic banking and finance growth trends in Africa, Islamic finance industry currently is valued at 2.2 trillion US dollars worldwide, and it is projected to reach 3.8 trillion US dollars by year 2022. And this is according to Islamic Finance Development Report. The continent of Africa has 1.3 billion people, where around 44% they are Muslims. And this is a huge potential to shift the growth curve of Islamic finance to a large population of African countries. 1.3 billion It's a large market. If it can be used, it can be harnessed, and Islamic financial institutions and banking can record a very profound growth in Africa, because the market is huge, 1.3 billion people. However, there are things which affect the growth trends of Islamic banking and finance in Africa. Number one is lack of political will. I was talking about countries which are Christian. The Christianity is driving force, and country where Islam religion is driving force. Here, the political will is very important. In secular countries and Christian countries, there is a lack of political will to establish Islamic banking and finance. And there is also a lack of qualified personnel to educate people and to interact with the population as far as Islamic banking and finance is concerned. The lack of qualified people, Sharia advisors, which are properly trained. AlHuda side, thanks Allah, have training for such qualification for such people, but there is also even people serving in most of the Islamic banking and financial institutions in Africa. Most of them are not properly trained to serve the people. And there is also lack of standardized regulations. In Africa, this is a big problem. Standardization of regulations and even lack of regulations, which cater for Islamic banking and finance growth, is a substantial issue here. There is, as well as absence of an active Islamic financial market such as sukuk and Islamic investment markets. A lack of these has made the growth of a trajectory of Islamic finance and banking in Africa to be stunted, because people are looking for investments and they cannot find institutions which are providing investment. In Tanzania, we are thanks to brother Salma Wave. I've seen he's present here. There is SSC, investment share markets which are newly formed. And such efforts, if are replicated in other countries of Africa, they can help very much into the growth trend of the Islamic banking and finance. Now, according to Islamic finance development report, Islamic finance assets in Africa stood at 31.1 billion US dollars in 2016. With 206 Islamic financial institutions operating across Africa. Now we are here 2021. I didn't get hold of the data for now, but we can assume that with the changes happening in Africa, that there is a growth trend, which is the one we are looking now. There have been a total of 147 sukuk issuance during year 2016, mostly within sub-Saharan Africa. And this proves to us that there is a growing interest in Islamic finance across the continent of Africa. 1.7 sukuk issuance in 2016, and now there can be more. But Muslim minority countries such as Kenya and South Africa have geared up very large to accommodate Islamic financial operations. And here, the political will counts for these changes. In Kenya, they've made even financial regulations amendments to cater for the growth of Islamic banking and finance. There is takaful there, and there is also not only takaful, but sukuk in Kenya. They have been regulations have been put in place to make sure that sukuk can grow in Africa. And without the growth of sukuk markets, the financial growth of Islamic banking and finance in Africa cannot be noted so much, because people are not just looking for these services to deposit their money. What they look is to get the help they require, the financial investment they require. The financial loans which are required to individuals and even to institutions in order for them to go into the activities. So South Africa has issued the largest number of sovereign sukuk issuance in Africa so far. And Kenya have made, as I have mentioned, revisions to its banking and capital markets regulations to pave the way for sovereign sukuk issuance in the future. Where there is a growth of sukuk markets in any financial institution, which means the Islamic bonds, it shows that there is a vibrant growth of Islamic finance in that country. Industry in Africa, financial banking and finance industry also witnessed even the Francophone African countries making the debut into sukuk markets with two issuance coming out of Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is a vibrant now growing sukuk market in the Western Africa. And some African countries have already started taking steps to support the local uptake of these financial mechanisms. Among them, Kenya, as mentioned, Senegal, Djibouti, and Uganda. All of them introduced the legal and regulatory frameworks to promote the development of Islamic finance products in their jurisdictions. And if this trend, as you can see there in the map, it shows there is like a line stretching from Ethiopia going down to Kenya and going to Tanzania, and there is Zambia and Zimbabwe up to Southern Africa. You see the Islamic banking appearance, as you can see, Southern Africa there is Zimbabwe, and Tanzania, and Kenya, and there's Niger, and Senegal, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, it goes to Mali. But there is scope for further development in countries with the orange color. It shows that there the market is ready to receive. Only the effort is required. I am now supervising one of the Takaful pioneers in Burundi as a consultant of HMO family Takaful in Burundi. And I've in agreement with them that after this Takaful takes place, that there are a number of banks, conventional banks in Burundi, they want to go into Islamic banking. So this is a trend in most of the countries, especially those which were not traditionally going with Islamic finance. Apart from this promising growth, as we have seen, the growth is largely limited to Islamic banking. Takaful is not so much. Sukuk is not so much. So Islamic banking, and mostly Islamic banking in Africa, its growth is in areas of deposits accounts in very much. But for the financing products and investment products, it's not so much a growth, apart from South Africa and mainly maybe Kenya. And also the Islamic microfinance is still in niche stage in African countries with large Muslim population, as we've noted, being outside the financial inclusions. What was required actually was SMEs, Islamic microfinances, or what's known as the SACCO. They are the ones which are required to reach the large Muslim population, especially the rural areas. Now in Takaful, both general Takaful and family Takaful in Africa, they are lagging far away. The prospects in many countries is not so much, promising. With little development or absence of Takaful, Islamic microfinance, and Sukuk, Islamic banking and finance growth in Africa is doomed to grow slowly, even into the next decade. The need is to make sure there is Takaful, because Takaful or Islamic insurance goes hand in hand with Islamic banking. And also Sukuk, because if there is Sukuk can be formed, they will not lack, liquidity, since these Sukuk can provide, vehicles which can help into the financing of these Islamic banking and other financial institutions. So this trend is what we are seeing in the African continent so far. Let's move into the opportunities for Islamic banking and finance in Africa. Africa is a sleeping giant, people say, in any aspect. Africa is a sleeping giant. In resources development, it's a sleeping giant. In Islamic banking and finance, it's also sleeping giants. There is a chance for Africa to be a true innovator for Islamic finance industry, because there are untapped opportunities. Everywhere where there are untapped, unharnessed, and developed or underdeveloped, opportunities, it is an opportunity for people who want to invest in Islamic banking and finance. Why we say Africa has got an untapped opportunity? Number one, there is a large Muslim population, which you have seen. 1.3 billion Muslim population is itself enough, even if non-Muslim cannot join Islamic banking and finance. If Muslims only can get hooked into Islamic banking and finance, this can be a very great market. And they, as we have seen, they are underserved. And also there are large financial inclusion gap in African countries. We have seen countries with as low as 5.3% of the population being in financial inclusion, that's accessing bank activities, accessing financial activity institutions. These numbers speak by themselves. There's also a huge infrastructure need in the African continent, building of roads, irrigation system, hydroelectric power, the harnessing of natural gas. All these require heavy investment, and the heavy investment means the involvement of the financial sector. So that is a huge infrastructure needs. This is an opportunity. Also, foreign investment needs. Africa need direct foreign investment, or DFI. These needs themselves speak by volumes. If the conventional banks cannot provide all of the foreign investment needs in African countries, therefore Islamic banking and finance would have to chip in to make sure, especially to the Muslim populations. There is also underdeveloped natural resources and resources allocation needs, which can be tapped and approached by Islamic banking and financial institutions. Another thing very important is large youth population. Out of the 1.3 billion Muslims in Africa, the majority are the youth, and youth are always a vibrant generation. So if this can be educated, can have awareness of Islamic banking and finance, then it is very important that the growth of opportunities of Islamic banking and finance in Africa will be very, very large. And another thing is failure of conventional banks to penetrate into the population, especially the rural population. With the Islamic microfinance, we would very easily penetrate into the rural population and make sure that our people are saved and they are brought into financial inclusions. Now, however, the real potential for growth of Islamic banking and finance in Africa depends on understanding the following parameters. If you cannot understand the following parameter, you cannot penetrate or you cannot harvest the opportunities. Number one is to know percentage of unbanked people with religious concerns. Islamic banking and finance is ethical banking. And when we talk about ethical banking, here Muslims are the first to be concerned with. So the percentage of unbanked people with religious concern, those people who shun interest, who shun usury, people who do not want to deal with conventional banks and financial institutions, to know the percentage of these people is very important. But now there is no or very little studies have been made to know the percentage of unbanked people with religious concern. There is studies with to know the percentage of unbanked people or the financial inclusions, but not with, into inverted commas, religious concern. After knowing this, you have to know the percentage of unbanked people with religious concerns who are interested into Islamic banking and finance, because there are people who are unbanked with religious concern, but they are not interested to into Islamic finance. We have to know those who are interested in Islamic finance from their religious consent. And also we have to know the percentage of unbanked people with religious consent. As we have said, they are not interested in Islamic finance, because without knowing this, you can invest in largely into a population or into an area to only to find that there is no any attraction from the community into the Islamic banking and financial services. After knowing the percentage of unbanked people with religious consent, interested in Islamic finance, and those who are not interested, we have to know the percentage of unbanked people with religious consent interested from the financial institution perspective. You know, they can be interested into Islamic finance, but are they interested into financial institution perspective? Are they interested in that? And also to know the percentage of unbanked people with religious consent not interested from the financial Islamic perspective. They are interested only to get maybe Karatha Hasana loans, but they are not interested into actually financial Islamic perspective, whereby they can involve themselves into financial activities. Also to know the percentage of unbanked people with religious concerns and not interested in Islamic financial perspective. These studies are very important to be conducted by any Islamic financial institution or any bank which wants to start Islamic banking and finance in Africa. This is a way of knowing the opportunities. Now, the development of Islamic financial finance in Africa could also facilitate the financial deepening. How? By increasing the depth and breadth of intermediation. In bank activities is being intermediary between the financial institution and the community. So the Islamic finance can facilitate financial deepening by increasing the depth and breadth of intermediation, extending the reach of the system, that is extension of maturities and facilitation of hedging and risk diversification, so that to attract people who want to use the financial banking and institution. At the same time, the much larger non-Muslim population could find Islamic financial instruments attractive in broadening the range of available options, particularly for SMEs and micro finances or microcredits. If these people can be attracted, especially into SMEs, and microfinance, now the banks will be dealing not largely by the individual, they will be dealing with the SMEs and dealing with the SACCOs and microfinances, which will make easy now for the banks to expand, to interact with the community. You know, the SMEs and the microcredit institutions such as microfinance and SACCOs will be the link between the population and the banks. This will largely, result into the growth of Islamic banking and finance in Africa. Moreover, financial deepening and financial inclusion could be further enhanced if new instruments, we have to make emphasis here, new instruments are inspired from Islamic finance, necessarily being Sharia compliant. You know, one of the bottleneck of the growth of Islamic banking and finance in Africa is that there have been very little growth of new instruments. You know, we lack creativity, and so people just look of the Islamic products which are being provided by Islamic banking and finance as to be the mirror of the conventional products, and therefore they are not attracted. If we can we can form, new instruments, and this should be Sharia compliant to serve the population, we shall very easily, provide opportunities, a number of opportunities in our African countries. In addition, the sub-Saharan African countries could tap into growing Islamic financial markets, as we've seen Sukuk in Kenya, Sharika from SSC, in Tanzania. If these financial markets grow, they will meet the infrastructure financing needs, not in a near future, inshallah. By opening doors to Islamic finance, the African continent can seek to attract capital from the Gulf states and other Muslim countries whose savings rates are high. You know, the Gulf countries have got, you know, petrodollars. They don't know even where to go and invest. Now, if they find there is a market which they can invest, and especially for in those countries, there is Islamic banking and finance. There is, Murabaha, there is Ijara, and all the other products we know Islamic banking and finance. They can greatly attract these investment from the Gulf states. In particular, Sukuk financing is very important in expanding in other countries, and this can be a useful tool in financing infrastructure needs in the African countries. And lastly, Islamic financing can help to develop small and medium enterprises and microfinance activities, given that the African households and firms have less access to credit from conventional banks compared to other developing countries. So if Islamic financial can develop small and medium enterprises, can enhance the growth of small and medium enterprises and microfinances, they can very, very easily access the market of African population. Islamic banks can tap a segment of depositors that either do not participate or do not trust the interest-based banking. So this is an opportunity also for Islamic banking and finance. They can also promote the SMEs access to credit. Microfinance, SACCOs should access credit through expanding acceptable collaterals. Acceptable collateral. I was in Pakistan, Brother Mughal, no. The AlHuda, Pakistan, the largest microfinance in the world, they do not require the people who go there to seek for loans to have, fixed assets as collaterals. So what they use mostly is what's known as group or community collaterals, where people in a group through an SME, through a microfinance or a SACCOs, can access loans, and the microfinance access loans from the banking. So this participatory basis will make sure that either there is inclusion of many people into Islamic banking and finance in the continent of Africa. These are the opportunities. Now let's move into challenges and their mitigations. The challenges that we see in Africa banking, Islamic banking and finance, largely is knowledge gap. Mostly many people do not know about Islamic banking and finance, and they do not bother. There's never been great awareness campaigns to make sure that the people, especially the Muslims, understand the banking, Islamic banking and finance. Also, there's the regulatory gap. Regulatory gap, as we've seen, when people want to start or banks want to start Islamic banking and finance, the bottleneck number one is regulatory activities, whereby the environment is never level with the conventional banks. So the Islamic banking and finance becomes very costly as compared to conventional banking activities. There's also products diversity gap, that most of the banks here in Africa providing Islamic banking and finance are not creative enough to make sure that they are producing products which can reach to the lower level of the society. The financial inclusion gap, we have already spoken about it, that the large number of people are not included into the banking system. The institutional challenges also. Institutional challenges everywhere, where we mean here that the Islamic banking or Islamic windows which are formed, they've got their own institutional challenges. Under trained personnel, lack of properly trained Sharia advisors and such things. So you can summarize them here that financial inclusion, we have self-inclusion, there is lack of access. When we talk about financial inclusion, we mean self-inclusion. Someone doesn't want to deal with Islamic, with banking generally. And there is also lack of access, that people want these activities, but the activities, they cannot access these banking activities. For example, most Muslims want Islamic banking. They want takaful, but they cannot access them simply because the products are not there or the system does not allow it. Financial literacy here, we're talking about distrusts and lack of documentation. So there are no books which are written enough in the local languages to make people understand Islamic banking and the finance. Also, Islamic finance, religious concern, the ethical values of the products which are provided by Islamic banking and finance. The religious concern is when the banking providing Islamic bank or a financial institution providing Islamic bank make serious mistakes and people begin to erode their trust. When they lack the trust into Islamic finance, then that is a challenge which is faced. There is also more control, transparency issues. More control is required. Control over these banks which are providing Islamic banking and finance to make sure that they are Sharia compliant products, there are Sharia compliance activities. This is also very important. Also cheap accounts, not enough money. There are cheap accounts, which means not enough money, cheap accounts, expensive bank accounts, because the cost of operating an account in a bank, in Islamic bank becomes higher than that in a conventional bank. So people are not interested in that. There is also digital gap, knowledge gap, such as digital activities. People are now mostly hooked into mobile phones. So if the banks, Islamic banking and finance can harness this knowledge, and make sure that they reach people through their mobile phones, through their smartphones, they can go around limited geographic coverage because they are not so much dispersed, especially into the rural areas. These are some of the challenges which are faced in Islamic banking and finance in Africa. Now, what to be done? Number one is creating Islamic finance ecosystem. This is now a terminology. Creating Islamic finance, making sure that people are environmental conscious. But there is also Islamic finance ecosystem. The Islamic finance ecosystem, you can look here in your screen, financial regulations, be in place to make sure that there is growth of Islamic banking and finance in place. We have got IOFI standards or Islamic Financial Services Board, standards for both regulatory standards and accounting standards. These should be much known, not only known, but used by Islamic banking and finance. Also, takaful development. It should go hand in hand with Islamic banking. Takaful. Microfinance development should be hand in hand with the Islamic banking and finance. Also, institutional capacity building. We should make sure that any bank which is operating Islamic bank activities, the personnel are properly trained, Sharia Supervisory Board are there properly trained, and all the activities are Sharia compliant. The reports, or I mean auditing of the banking activity should be done, and the transparency should be there, transparency, to make sure that people understand what these banks are doing, what these microfinance, Islamic microfinance are doing, what these SMEs related to Islamic are doing, in order not to let people be guessing what these people are doing. So this is very important to make sure that there is Islamic financial ecosystem. In conclusion, brothers and sisters, how the governments, organs of the states, and the people of Africa respond to the challenges of Islamic finance, and also the extent to which they adopt Islamic finance as financing tools could have a significant impact on the microeconomic development of the continent of Africa in the foreseeable future. Raising the stakeholders, awareness, population, the students in the schools and colleges, using media in order to make sure that there are TV programs, radio programs, and print media also, to make that understanding of Islamic financial products and practices are reaching the population. And also additional financing options, that they are present, they can spur the public and private sector demand for Islamic finance, and regulatory reforms are required in a number of countries in order to meet this demand. And also, as a conclusion, we should bridge the regulatory gap, bridging the regulatory gap, making sure that the regulatory laws of the countries, financial regulation of the country are conducive to the growth of Islamic banking and finance. It can help to address the Africa's financial inclusion deficit, because we've seen largely area occupied by Muslims. They are low percentage of financial inclusion. And this, if it is done, it can encourage the growth and innovation of Sharia compliant products. If the Sharia compliant products, there is innovation, then this can help the African countries in Islamic banking and finance. And this will result in increasing the range of financial institutions, products, and services available. And also the populace, accordingly, will increase the financial inclusion. Moreover, providing African governments and companies and individuals with greater access to finance can play a major role in bridging the African infrastructure gap and promoting economic growth and social prosperity across the continent. Foreign direct investment is required. So if the governments and companies and individuals will have greater access to finance by growth of Islamic banking and finance and takaful, microfinances, the SACCOs, this will promote the economic growth of the continent of Africa and will bring the social prosperity across the continent. Considerable work is still required also to overcome the challenges we've mentioned above, standing in the way of Islamic finance flourishing in Africa. But clearly, the rewards required will outweigh the efforts which can be invested. With these remarks, conclusions, I return the mic to our moderator, so that we can continue with the program. Jazakumullah khaira. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. Dear participants, if you have any questions, then you can raise your hand so that I can unmute your mic. Yes, Abu Bakr, Easa, Jibril, you can ask your question.
Yes, brother, you can go on. Brother Bakar Easa Jibril, please, we are waiting for your question or your remarks.
I think there is an internet connection problem from his side. Anyone more? If you have any question, then you can ask.
Thank you. First, I would like to, appreciate. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. We can hear. Go on, brother.
Development of Islamic banking and finance in Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, we have some problem, regarding the development of Islamic banking and finance. As we have been discussing with colleagues, I just want you to shed more light on, the factors or reason why do you think that Islamic finance or Islamic banking and finance up to now, after implementing the policy or introducing Islamic finance in Nigeria, up to now is not well accepted as it's supposed to be?
Yes. Can I answer this question, sister?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, number one, brother, is political will. We have been talking of those countries where Islamic banking and finance is thriving, such as Kenya and South Africa. There was a political will from the governments of these countries to make sure that the financial regulations create a conducive environment for the growth and development of Islamic financial institutions. I've been reading about Nigeria. that there are, some Christian clergymen who are opposing the Islamic finance by seeing that this is just like Islamization of a country, because Islamic banking finance is based on Islamic teachings. So they are fearing, and these things have been found by people who are not friendly to Islam, and therefore they tie the hands of the government of the concerned countries not to move with a speedy pace, maybe in creating environment conducive by passing these regulations, which can financial regulations, making amendments which can be conducive for growth of Islamic finance. But the other problem, or the other factor, is lack of interest from the Muslim themselves. A large number of Muslims have got being misled by people who say that there is nothing like Islamic banking and finance. No, all this is just cheating people. It's just pretending that they're providing Islamic services, but there's no Islamic in banks. Just like as if Islam cannot be moved with the development of the mankind. The bank, yes, there were no banks by then in the history of Islam, but the banking activities were there in the Islamic during the Umayyad dynasty, during the Abbasid dynasty. They were there, banking activities. Even the insurance was there, although not as in the form it is today in the banks. So by looking what banks are doing and what banks have affected people through the interest, bearing loans. So most of the Muslims say no, this cannot be. It cannot be possible to have Islamic services products in the banks. So this also is another thing, and the Muslim scholars should be in the forefront in order to make sure to educate people that these things are really there, and they are passed by the scholars, the world-renowned scholars like Mufti Taki Osman, and other scholars, that these are Islamic, they are Sharia compliant, in order to remove this cloud upon the Muslims. But also there are errors which have been made by Islamic banks and finance, which started in some countries. I don't know the real situation in Nigeria. If there was a bank, it was maybe conventional. It started providing what it claimed to be Islamic products. And then people discovered they are not Islamic as it is claimed. These people will run away, even if now a pure Islamic bank can start activities. People will refer to the failure or to the error which was done by that Islamic bank activities before, and they will not be attracted to it. Another one is lack of knowledge gap in our educational system, Islamic educational system, from madrasa, where people learn their religion. Such things are not taught. Most scholars make big effort into the fiqh ibadat, that is fiqh of the worships activities. But fiqh muamalat, and especially muamalat maliya, that is things to deal with the property, with the business, with the trade. They are not given much emphasis in the khutbah, Jum'ah khutbah, or in the teachings in our madrasas, in our educational system. So largely Muslims, which are to be the primary movers of Islamic banking and finance, do not understand these Islamic banking and financial activities. These are my views as far as I understand this issue.
Thank you so much. Dear participants, if anyone have more questions, then you can ask, please.
So there are two participants raised their hand. Can you allow them, please? Yes, brother Omar Kamara, can you go on, please?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Yeah, Sheikh Muhammad Isa, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the straight path and the path upon Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his entire Khalifa until the last day.
Allahumma
Yeah,
amin.
Alhamdulillah. My question is, now is right now I'm Omar Kamara in the Gambia. Yeah, we for the formulation of Islamic microfinance in the Gambia, the operational perspective and product designing. It is indeed, a challenge for us, like an Islamic banking, expertise. Like some of the institutions, they have the operational problems and challenges, and some in fact not even 100%. So if you are not a part of the board of directors that make the decision of the company, those, they what they focus on is about profit, 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 profit. But last time I was chatting with one of the operator, but the CEO is focused on profit, profit. But whether it is compliant, Sharia compliant, they not bother that much. Yeah, so I would like you to guide me in the area of the product designing, and how to design the Islamic microfinance products, and also whether in the area of also this area, that is in the area of microfinance, financial inclusion, like the product and they give also to the customers. So what shall they do? What procedures do they need to follow when dealing with the customers? And also, are they supposed to add something after giving the loan, or what procedure do they have to follow? Yeah, that's my questions that I want you to help me with, inshallah. Barakallah fiqh.
Allahumma amin. First of all, it's not a sin to focus on profit for an Islamic financial institution such as a microfinance or a bank, but to overemphasize, to make a big emphasis into profit, 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 without taking into consideration the needs of the society. We know Islamic banking and finance is not only business oriented only, but also it is serving the mankind. So the ethical element of Islamic banking and finance should be considered. You see, the most important thing in a microfinance is the setup of the microfinance. What are the goals of the microfinance establishment first? Is it to solve the problem which are currently in the population, for example, lack of loans for small businessmen, or is it only to profit, as you have said? So at first you have to be focused in your goal. What is your goal? Is it to serve the people, or it is to make profits? There should be both goals, but number one should be serving the people. Number two is to make profit. Now, in order to make profit, there are things which are to be considered. Number one of those things is to make the organization, a microfinance, purely Islamic microfinance. That is, the principle of Islamic microfinance should be not only in books, but should be also in its operational activities. The products which are provided should not only be created for the sake of having a product. They should be created to cater for solving the problem of the people, especially the rural people. For example, providing small loans through murabaha, or that is cost plus sell financing, through ijara financing, or even through Qarad Hasana, which is loans, benevolent loan, without having a profit from that loan. This can be done by having a proper study of the area, identifying what are the needs of the people, financial needs of the people, and to what large extent these needs will be met. Is it to be met by a bank, or it is to be met by a microfinance? when you see it as a microfinance, that's now you see you are dealing with the micro level. And when you're dealing with the micro level of the population, it's very sensitive. A small mistake can derail all activities, and people will say, these people are not providing Islamic. So how to deal with the customers? First of all, people should be trained. Those are personnel should be trained to serve the customers as according to Islamic principles. They should understand the products which are being provided by the microfinance. If it is murabaha, they should have a proper knowledge of murabaha. If it is ijara, they should have a proper knowledge of ijara. And that microfinance should have Sharia supervisory board. That is the board of scholars, a minimum of 3 board of scholars according to IOFI standards, who understand the intricacies of a financial institution. And it should have also a Sharia advisor. The Sharia advisor, the one will be permanently hooked to the microfinance or to the SME to make sure that daily activities are being carried as according to Sharia. They are Sharia compliant. So if a microfinance has no Sharia supervisory board, has no Sharia advisor, it is only the executive who will be making executive decisions. And the Sharia compliant decisions will have no one to make them. And when the population sees such a thing, they will say, these people are not providing the Islamic products as a operational perspective. These are my humble suggestions what to be done. First, have to proper study, make sure that your goal is first to save the people, but also to make profit, and make sure that there are expertise, knowledge. The people who are providing these activities or these products should have proper knowledge. They should have a Sharia supervisory board. They should also have a Sharia advisor, and greatly they should use the internationally recognized Sharia governance standards, accounting standards. They should, and here it's importance of having a consultant. You should have a consultant who will come and study how your area needs are, and how to set up that microfinance properly, and even to not to set up, but also to remove those bottlenecks we have been speaking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I think there is no more question from audience, so that we can conclude our today's session. And thank you so much for the wonderful and insightful information that you have shared. I hope participants have learned a lot from you, and many questions have solved by this webinar. And it's an honor for you. It's an honor to have you on board. Hoping to learn a lot from you in future also. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. Hope so we meet again in the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Huyu anasema thank you for your wonderful presentation. Omar Kamara wa Gambia, Abubakari wa Nigeria. Kuna watu dunia nzima.